Welcome to the West Texas Town Hall Lubbock Mayoral Forum. This program is brought to you by Texas Tech Public Media and the Lubbock Chapter of the NAACP. I'm Sarah Self-Walbrick, the news director at Texas Tech Public Media.
And I'm Milton Lee, president of the Lubbock NAACP, and we'll be your moderators for this evening.
Lubbock is guaranteed to have a new mayor for the first time in 6 years after the upcoming municipal election. There are 5 candidates vying for the seat. Tonight, they will answer questions about key community issues, many of which were submitted by citizens. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond. The candidates are sitting in the order in which they will appear on the ballot. They are Trey Payne, Gus Kahn, Stephen Sanders, Adam Hernandez, and Epifanio Major Garza. Following our questions, we will say who will answer first, and then we ask the candidate to that person's left to speak it next until we get back to who started. Milton, I'm going to hand it off to you to get us started.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Candidates, tell us why you are running for mayor of Lubbock. And we'll start off with you, Mr. Payne.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for being here. It's good when we get out and actually visit with people and get our message out. I know I'm very honored to be sitting here with these other men. It's been a really neat process for me to see others that are stepping out and getting involved in their communities, because I think collectively we all believe that's what it's about, is the betterment of our community. As to the reason why I'm running is I've been involved in this community, heavily involved for the last 22 years. I moved here in 1992 from the big city of Post, Texas, and I went to Texas Tech. I got an accounting degree, and then I worked as a short period of time as an auditor, and then I went to law school, and that's where I met my lovely wife. We've been married for nearly 22 years, and I brought her back here to Lubbock. I was a part of the district attorney's office and the federal attorney's office for nearly 10 years, and then I've been involved in the community in various ways, from serving on boards to teaching Sunday school. And Lubbock matters. And the question I'm posing to people more and more as I get into this process is not why are you running, but thank you for running. And thank you for all those that are involved in community service, because this is hard. But it's important. And it's important especially for generations that move up to get involved in their communities, to get off the sidelines, as I say, start getting involved in our communities and try to make a difference. And at the end of the day, I'm running because I feel like I was called. I feel like I'm supposed to do this. And so I will continue to do the very best I can. If I'm elected, I'm going to do the very best I can for the city that I love so very much.
Well, thank you for having us. My name is Gulrez Khan. Everyone calls me Gus. You can call me Gus as well. I'm a businessman here in town. We have a company called American Star Home Health and Hospice Care. As far as education goes, I have a master's degree in business administration. Come from a family of physicians, business owners, and farmers. Got elected as a precinct chairman with the Lubbock County Republican Party, Precinct 27, 2 years ago. Excuse me. Also, I got elected as a delegate, national delegate, Republican National Convention 2020. So primarily, I'm running for our conservative principles, including pro-life, which inspired me to step up and provide the leadership needed for Lubbock. So if I'm blessed enough to be the mayor of Lubbock, along with continuing to keep Lubbock a sanctuary for the unborn, I want to remove Planned Parenthood from Lubbock in the first year of administration. Next is our debt. Our debt is $1.8 billion. In the state of Texas, we are ranked number 1 in certificates of obligation debt. And we are ranked, according to the state comptroller, second in per capita debt. Each one of us here owes $4,208 towards this debt. That is unfair to the citizens of Lubbock. Next is safety. One of the main reasons we have been having high crime rate is because of underpaid and understaffed law enforcement. So I want to make sure that our citizens' voice is heard and these issues are given importance, and that way we can make Lubbock a much better place. Thank you.
My name is Stephen Sanders, and I'm just excited to be here. Thank everybody for being here. So many familiar faces. and just good to be a part of this event. The main reason that I'm running is because some people before me, a lot of people before me have put in and sacrificed sweat, blood, and tears to allow me an opportunity to run for mayor in the United States of America. At one time, that wasn't okay, and now it is. And so here I am. I'm standing here. I have 5 beautiful children and my beautiful wife. They're always watching me. My kids are watching me and depending on me to be an example for them. And not only that, my community, this is my community. This is where I grew up. I walked these streets every single day. I fought and I chased dogs and cats and everything in this community. This is my community, and I love this community, and I will never put anything before my community. But as mayor, I have to take a broad view and take a step back and make sure that I'm reaching the needs of everybody in all 4 corners of the city and not neglecting anyone. We've dealt with that before for about 50 years, and now it's time for us to make a step forward and bringing things to an equal playing ground so that every part of Lubbock can thrive and every citizen in Lubbock can feel the American dream. And that's the main reason why I'm running. I'm excited also too, because now we're opening up a door for other young politicians to come behind us. I may not get elected. I don't know who's gonna win, but I do know that there's young people watching us and that we're setting a good example for them to come behind, and we can lead them and guide them to be good leaders, just like these guys are too. So I appreciate it. I love all of you, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, so Adam Hernandez, and the reason why I decided to run for mayor is one of the things that actually sets me apart as a candidate in this race. So I got involved in advocacy in the summer of 2020 to push for the revitalization of my native East Lubbock community. This is where I grew up, spent most of my life, as well as historic North and Central Lubbock inside the Loop. That then led to me advocating with and on behalf of communities all across Lubbock around various issues ever since that time. In the process of doing that work, I was recruited by citizens and community leaders to consider running for mayor. So this was not something that I ever had an idea to do myself. I've never had any political ambitions. And the only reason I ever got into any of this and remain in it is because I'm passionate about using my time, energy, experience, and skills to serve the communities of Lubbock. And I've proven that, and I believe that's why those folks have confidence in me. And so that's why I'm here in front of you today.
Major Garza here. Thank you so much for being here. Why am I running for mayor? The reality is somebody's going to be mayor, right? And I started right there. So, you get involved, turn 18, and there's things that's going on within your community, and people promise stuff, and over, I mean, not just Lubbock, not, around local, state, federal. People say stuff and then they don't follow through. So why does that happen? And you sit there and you get upset because you vote for these people that promise change. And then if there's a little bit of change, it's not what they said was going to happen. And Lubbock, you can go back to Lubbock and see that's happening. And I've been doing this, because the position of mayor is one of leadership. That's all it is, in parliamentary procedure, if you want to get technical about it. Joining the military was the first thing I did out of high school because I didn't have any money. I'm a poor migrant worker in the fields, cotton. That's all I knew, and that's all I was expected to do. I was going to graduate and drive a tractor. That was like your promotion. Joining the military after 27 years, I've got a master's degree in human resources, it's a management degree, specialization in human resources, and a bachelor's in business. All that made me a stronger person to be a strong businessman and be a strong military leader. Again, that's what Lubbock is about. The mayor position is being the leader, the figurehead. It's not somebody who pounds, who says, this is what we're going to do and we're going to do it. It's just the figurehead. And the position is you are the leader. You represent the city of Lubbock. That's what I want to bring. My experience where the military, where you had to keep men alive, where you had to keep resources maintained. That's what the city has. And that's what I want to do, be the leader of the mayor of Lubbock. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you all. Candidates, how closely have you followed city council meetings and developments in the past? Mr. Khan, we'll start with you this time.
Yes, I've been following this ever since our city council, this one came in 2016. Been watching them very closely. And, one of my main concerns is when we talk about borrowing more money. I was sharing earlier in my introduction, we are $1.855 billion in debt. And we are leading amongst 9 peer cities: Corpus Christi, Frisco, Texas, Amarillo, Grand Prairie, Garland, Texas. This is unfair to our citizens. So my goal is, and by the way, this out of this $1.8 billion, over $600 million was borrowed within the last 5 years or so. Now, had it not been for the HR House Bill 1869, we would have continued to borrow more money without citizens' involvement. So the general obligation bond obligates the city council to put it, just like we had the street bond recently, which failed, to put in front of our citizens for them to vote on it. So this needs to stop. America is about less government. Unfortunately, at the federal level and our city level, we are seeing more government involvement and mandates. So first of all, our main priority is to have a mayor who focuses on this debt, works towards minimizing it rather than continuing to incur more debt. So yes, I've been following the city council meetings, and this has been my emphasis, my take on those council meetings. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. In 2016, I started following. I went to my first CPAC meeting and began to learn about what we faced in downtown first. That was, and I learned that we were having trouble revitalizing downtown because of parking issues and the city refusing to incentivize our business people to come in and do business in downtown. And so at that meeting, I remember a councilwoman, Patterson Harris, telling me, you need to get involved. I stood up and spoke at that meeting. And then I started watching and coming around and being around. And now I got it locked in on my phone. I mean, like I'll pull it up live or whatever it takes, and follow that. The main thing I think we need to really focus on the council is that we have 4 or 5 different positions that are about to switch out, and us fussing about what the council hasn't done isn't going to really do us any good. I tell you what we are going to do if I'm elected mayor, and that is we're going to work together. And it's easier to work with people than it is to be against them. It's easier to reason with people and see their view rather than fight against them. We're a very diverse community, and I think that our council needs to be a diverse council as well, so that we are able to meet the needs of each community. I'm not saying that just because someone's Hispanic, they should be in the Hispanic area. I'm just saying we need people who understand how to understand other people. And who also want to put the people's work first. You get elected, they elect you to do what they ask you to do. You know what your constituents want you to do, and you have to focus on that and not get sidetracked. And whatever it takes, I want to work with each council person and make sure that we're successful in Lubbock.
Yeah, so for the past 2.5 years, I've been attending pretty much all of the city council meetings on a monthly basis. That's work sessions, that's regular city council meetings, as well as several different boards. All of this is involved with my advocacy work, which I do on a weekly basis. And so I'm at City Hall often. I've also been attending for the past 10 months the LIDA and Market Lubbock meetings to learn more about what we're doing to draw businesses here and keep our folks here and better our economy. And I've also recently started to visit all of the department heads so that I can more fully understand how the city operates and how our city government operates. And so I've followed it quite closely. And that's another thing that sets me apart pretty clearly in this race. And so, yeah.
As far as following, I lived in Wolford, and that's where I got started really with politics because of changes that were going on that I didn't think were right. And I started reaching out to Wolford City Council. And then we moved to Lubbock only because we had to move from our house. Everything was growing in Wolford, and I got out of there, moved to Lubbock, and I started following Lubbock because that was our new politicians. But I had been following because they kind of affect Wolford. I mean, we're in Lubbock County, so things that happen in Lubbock happen in Lubbock County and happen to all of us. So we're kind of all in one big family. So I automatically been following for over 15 years that I've been involved with some politicians. I even have emailed, and I'll tell you, I don't get responses back. So if anybody in the city council has ever emailed you or the mayor, that's why I'm here, because I got tired that you reach out to them. And if they're doing it to me, they're probably doing it to other people. And it could be something that's insignificant, or it could be something major, some disagreement or something that you would like them to do, address, and they fail to do that. And we've been struggling with the bricks. I mean, everybody bricks, or no bricks. That's just one issue, but you compound that. What has our city council been doing? If we have to go back 20 years and we're still struggling with the same problems, it tells me that when you look at the debt, $300 million, is that real money? That's a lot of money. When you look at the debt, $1 billion, that's a lot of debt, and then you keep adding more projects, that you were going up to $2 billion. That comes from us, from our properties. And right now people are complaining about their taxes. That's why I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Payne.
Sir, would you please repeat the entire question?
I sure can. How have you followed city council meetings and developments in the past?
In 2001, when I joined the county government, and county is obviously different than city, but when you work in law enforcement and some other agencies, you're heavily involved with city and planning as well. And so I've been involved with city and county government since 2001. And then we started having kids. We have 4 daughters, and life kind of catches up in there in the 2005, 6s and 7s, and you kind of lose track of time. In 2016, I actually asked to be part of CPAC, and I actually requested to be part of some of these committees. And I was turned down. I don't think I was country club material. I've never been involved in the country club. But at that point, then it turned up another gear for me of saying, I'm going to start paying attention to what's going on with our 2040 development. I've been involved as an attorney with some of the UDC development and looking intricately into those issues. So I've been involved in paying attention to city council meetings and development since 2001. The greatest thing that ever happened to some of us when we're working is when you can look at these online. And I watch, there's very few that I've ever missed over the last 4 to 5 years because I pay attention. And I want to get more heavily involved. And obviously, if I win this election, I should be at every meeting. But I've been heavily involved in the city council meetings for at least the 4 to 5 years, and probably at least say involved for the last 21 years.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Mhm.
Milton, back to you.
Okay. The next question is, if elected, what would your priorities be as mayor? And we'll start with you, Mr. Sanders.
Yes, sir. My number one priority is crime, obviously. It's not safe for us. I have 5 kids, and I tell you, when I send them to school in the mornings, I'm worried all day because we don't know. And our crime is steadily rising. Why is our crime rising? Because the father's not in the home or mom's not in the home. It's the single parent fight. Trying to maintain and survive. And what happens is mom is working, so the kids fall into the wayside. They become criminals, and they get into things that they wouldn't normally get into if they had parents to help rear them. And that's how crime starts. 85% of kids who hit the juvenile system right now, they're illiterate. They can't read and write. 60% of all people that are incarcerated right now cannot read or write. Why is that? Because we don't have anybody pushing that model of family and togetherness and staying together. I don't ever want to push anything on this city other than us being together, whether that's racial or social or any of that stuff. The only message that I have right now is for us to move forward together and to do it with common sense and to be fiscally responsible and operating good common sense spending. so that we are able to do more than we have ever done before. And that's the thing that we have to look at. That's why I have comprehensive plans. That's why I'm trying to figure out things, because everything we've seen in the past hasn't worked. And so that's why all of us are running right now, because we want change. These people want change, whether they vote for me or not. They're here because they want change. And I commend all of you for coming and supporting whoever you support, because these people need it. And that's the only way that we'll have the confidence that we need to push forward and to be what we need to be. There is a great opportunity for Lubbock to move forward. We can turn a leaf right now. And it's going to take all of you going to the polls, making sure you vote for the person that you want to vote for, which is Sanders, okay? So make sure you get that done.
Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah, so obviously the youth involvement in drug and gang culture is kind of what's leading to a lot of the crime that folks are seeing on the news and things of that nature. Obviously, working with LPD to continue to try to mitigate things in the immediate term. But one thing that I've been working and communicating closely with LP&L and several other entities on for the past year and a half is trying to work on some things that we can do for prevention to keep these kids from getting into that kind of lifestyle in the first place. And so there's some things that we could do with youth sports, for instance. There's mentorship things that we could do. There's a lot of things that the city could help out with in that direction. Another thing is what got me into advocacy, which is revitalizing our older areas of town. There's no reason why our city can't continue to see the growth that it's seeing, wherever that may be, and we can't take care of what we already have at the same time. There's no reason why we can't do those two things. So we must do that. And then the third kind of thing is just general department services issues. For the past 2.5 years, I, on a monthly basis, visit all of the neighborhood association meetings. So I'm very tapped into the community and their concerns. And so there's some things with code enforcement, with solid waste, with animal control and animal services. And a lot of those, they're dealing with the same issue, which is being short-staffed. And so what I'm proposing is that the city could do monthly job fairs at the Civic Center. They could have all the departments there. They could also open invite it for other businesses who may need employees, and do that on a monthly basis indefinitely, because we need a lot of folks, and a lot of those jobs are going to be high turnover. And so none of the services are going to get better until they have the staff to do that. And so those are my priorities.
Thank you. Mr. Garza.
I'd like my priority to be taxes. Now, the city council doesn't have much, because if you ask right now about taxes, they're going to say, well, it's set by that, and it's set by that, and you go to the department and they'll say, well, it's state law, and then you go to the state and they'll say, well, it's a comptroller. So everybody's pushing the buck, and nobody's responsible, and that's that design, okay? So that somebody doesn't lose their job as the mayor because they didn't lower the taxes, or somebody doesn't lose their job. You know, Charles Perry's at the state, he doesn't lose his job because he didn't do nothing. But all of our politicians are going to tell us that they're doing something. So that would be a priority, taxation. And how you target that is you got to make a big fuss about that. You just got to be hammering and hammering and hammering, because we're all paying a lot of taxes, all right? I've deployed so many times to another country, and I see the misery in those countries. We don't have that, but if we continue taking your money and spending it on these great ideas, because they're great ideas. Everybody has something that needs to happen, all right? We'd like to do this, we'd like to do this. But when you look at that, all those great ideas, we're $1 billion in debt. And then if you look forward, we're $2 billion in debt. So the further we keep going, and you're paying those taxes. So again, what's the priority? Taxation. You need to attack that, and you need to hit it hard, because everybody's doing, no, go see them. We're just following the law. Go dispute your taxes, and they're just going to give you a bill and say, sucks for you. We didn't set the rules. So that's what I'd like to really target, and I can't stress that enough, because I'm paying over $7,000 in property tax. That's a primary, and we have to pay taxes. All right, we got to pay the police. So I'm not trying to say that we need to fund our government.
Mr. Payne.
Thank you. I believe that in a municipal level and in our backyard, the job of a local government is to take care of core fundamental services. That's the ground floor. Those are the absolute necessities. That's their job number one. And then you can move up the ladder to wants after you get to the needs. And the number one need is public safety. I think that's not a question. In fact, I think the number one function of a local government is public safety. That doesn't just include police, that includes fire services, that includes dispatch services, that includes first responders and EMTs, and that includes good roads and good streets. That includes code enforcement. Those are all public safety issues that are the ground floor issues that we have to take control of and make sure they're done on time, within budget, and efficiently. So that would be issue number one. I think next one also is the tax issue. We're coming up on new legislation where you have to talk about a no new revenue rate. And you can't just say because your appraisal has skyrocketed and we have people that are on fixed incomes and people that don't have the ability to earn more income with inflation and recession, you can't just continue to increase the property tax value. So we've got to look for ways to cut some wasteful spending. We've got to get smart. We've got to make hard decisions with the budget, just like you do in your own homes. You have to make good decisions in what you do and decide what are the necessities and what are the priorities. So ground floor, fundamental basics, public safety, taxation and wasteful spending, and then just being more efficient as a government. And that's customer service. When you're calling someone and they tell you, I'll get back with you, or they say, well, I can't get to you and you're on hold for 45 minutes, we need to work and address those issues and be a government that says yes to the citizens instead of always getting in our way and saying no.
Well, the two priorities which run hand in hand is our firstly debt. And because of our debt, which is $1.8 billion right now, if you look at budget, which was passed in October 2021, in order to pay towards the debt, city has already increased a lot of licensure fee. For example, getting registration permits, business permits, so on and so forth. And connected to that is our high rate of property valuation appraisals recently. So as Lubbock's mayor, my priority would be to work with the state legislature and make sure that our citizens get a fair value to their property. Next, of course, safety. Again, one of the reasons has been our law enforcement amongst our peer cities have been underpaid and understaffed. That's why most of them have ended up going to Fort Worth and Dallas to get more benefits and higher pay. That needs to be competitive here in Lubbock. After that is homelessness, which is rampant. And I'm already a part of several nonprofits. I serve on boards to see how we can reduce it. One of the other main priorities and one of the passions I've had for several years now is East Lubbock has been neglected for a long time. And being from healthcare background, managing several clinics and medical practices for over a decade now, one of the projects very close to my heart is to build a hospital in East Lubbock. If we are able to do that as Lubbock's mayor, that will get East Lubbockites an accessible hospital. It will lead to more job creation, and it'll help generate more revenues for East Lubbock, as well as Lubbockites as a whole. Thank you.
Let's switch gears to some specific issues, many of which you just mentioned in your priorities. A bond package that would have funded needed road repairs throughout the city failed during last year's November election. That work is still needed. This one comes from a citizen-submitted question. How will you see infrastructure projects through completion, and how else could the city's infrastructure be improved? Mr. Hernandez, please begin.
Yeah, so when the bond election, before it even hit the dais in front of the city council, I caught wind of it, and we essentially asked them from the very beginning to have the citizens involved from the very beginning. We asked them to do a citizen bond review committee, which is what has been done for every single bond election prior to that. Then when it got onto the dais, I then made about 3 public comments to that effect, essentially begging them to do a citizen bond review committee and get the citizens involved because we needed this work. A city our size should do a bond election every 6 years. At that point, it had been 12 years. We're now coming on 13. And so they didn't do that. And in my opinion, that's a big reason why it didn't fail. Obviously, Broadway was contentious. So what I would do, because again, the work needs to be done, and these are public safety issues. If you talk to our fire department and our LPD, they will tell you that. And so this needs to be done. But what needs to happen is create a citizen bond review committee, have the citizens involved in the process from the very beginning. The city can put forth their ideas of which roads and why they chose those, and then citizens can put forth what they would like, and we can hash it out, and you won't have to sell it at the end. You can just go vote it in. And so that's what needs to happen, because we're about hundreds of millions of dollars behind in that. And now, because we missed the low interest rates and all of that was going on, we're going to pay a lot more and get a lot less for our money, unfortunately.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you.
Can we please refrain from
Yeah.
clapping in
Yeah.
the room?
As
Thank
far
you.
as the bonds for roads, so I'm trying to target taxes and our neighbors. You know, again, if you vote for something, you're foisting something on your neighbors. So let's say a bond passed, and I know the sheriff bond for monies to the county passed. Those monies are foisted upon the folks who didn't want that bond to pass. Through our taxes, our city government should fix the roads. All right. And like I said, there's a lot of ideas out there, and people are putting them up there, and they get put in the budget and they become priorities, because once you start allocating funds, you can't just pull them out, because then, you know, why did you start this project and then it, you know, you half funded it? I mean, we do that all the time. But again, we're $1 billion in debt, and you go forward and now you're $2 billion in debt, and that is nowhere near to stopping. So again, our road bond should have been, our roads and infrastructure should be paid from our property taxes. And because we're doing all these wonderful projects, we don't have enough funding for the core. Our government has a function, and it has to maintain our citizens. You know, we keep talking about public safety, public safety, public safety. The city council can't control public safety. Those laws come from the state. You know, our police officers, they're doing their jobs based on state law. And guess what? The United States Constitution. That's what their rules are. The United States Constitution and the laws that the state of Texas passes and puts on our police officers. So if the jobs of our police officers are tough, it's because somebody else put them in that position. For example, you commit a crime, it has to be over $100 before they'll come and get you.
Mr. Payne.
So I think completion is an issue. Anytime with government, you know, I'm going to say we're going to do this, but then the completion, and that was the first part of your question, I believe. So as far as following through, you have to get in a better cadence of bringing these issues in front of the people. You have to get in a better cadence of bringing bond packages in front of the people and letting them make the decisions on what you do and you do not spend their money on. Because remember, it's your money, not the government's. And so with that, it also becomes a public safety issue. Bottom line is we have to get those roads and streets done. It has to be done. There is no reason for any city street to be dirt in our city. There's no reason on the east side or on the north or west side that we should have dirt roads in our city any longer. Those have to be done. There's no reason why children are driving on roads that remain incomplete. So if you do a better job of being positive and an effective leader and people have confidence in the leadership, they're going to go, okay, we trust you, we're going to go with that. If they don't have confidence, they're going to do what they did last time and say no. So positive, efficient, and effective leadership can help, and bringing that back up very quickly, because again, it's going to cost us more money. Second, what is needed for development in the future?
Yeah, what other infrastructure needs do you see?
Well, we have to continue to grow with our streets and roads, but we also have to start not only focus on where we continue to grow in north and south, but we have to focus on infill and redevelopment in north and east. You have to pay attention to what you have. Any city that's ever tried to just continue to grow in any direction and doesn't take care of what they built and what was originally what they had always fails. You have blight and you have places where they don't grow. And we've got to do infill and redevelopment in North and East Lubbock and make sure we're moving forward and having the resources that everyone needs to continue to grow in our city.
Infrastructure is very important. You know, we got to take care of our roads and streets. However, the recent street bond, which failed, $174.5 million. First of all, we've not had a general obligation bond election in over a decade. And that would have put our debt to over $2 billion. Now, we went through a pandemic. People lost lives, people lost livelihoods, people lost businesses. And then our priority is not focusing on that, and the priority is putting $40 million to put some bricks on Broadway, that fails the foundation of infrastructure. Yes, they need to be paved. They need to be we need to have better streets, but it has to go in phases. There are a lot of streets in East Lubbock which need to be developed. You look at 34th Street heading east, a lot of potholes. 114th Street needs to be wider. Citizens have to be, the city leadership, the council, the mayor have to be honest about it, acknowledge it. Hey, we are putting up this bond. Yes, it'll fix streets. It'll be your taxpayer money. However, we are also going to have unprecedented debt due to this. But how about we, break it into several, bond elections and do one step at a time, keep it transparent, and that way involve more citizens. Citizens have more say in it, so that it's we are able to meet a middle ground where it's a win-win situation for both. Yes, they're important, but at the same time, it has to be transparent, and citizens need to be communicated about it, educated, and and also the debt needs to be taken under consideration.
Thank you. Mr.
Yes,
Sanders.
ma'am. The bond election failed for a couple of reasons. One, mainly because Dan was on the ticket, just because he was on it. That was the first reason. And I think the second reason is because it was overwhelming. We've got to split, or when they go and vote, give them an opportunity to tell us how they want us to do it. Do we want to go this all in one go, or do we want to split it up so that we're not taking on that big burden? But honestly, there's no use of us holding back on getting it done, because we're already in debt like that anyways. What we have to do right now is set ourselves up to be successful financially in the future. We've got to fix what we have now. It's just going to cost us. There's no way of running around that. That's got to happen. And then the extra things that I think that we need to really look at is drainage, fit better in our drainage system. That's why I love East Lubbock, because East Lubbock don't flood. And everybody who moved out of East Lubbock, they like, man, I wish I would have stayed there. But it's too late. 34th Street floods. We have lots of areas that flood in Lubbock. We really need to look at that and make sure we redo that, because we've already said we've done it in several bond elections, especially on the 34th Street bond election. So we've been lied to many times. But I think because it's $700,000 per mile, it makes it daunting for people to say, yes, let's go ahead and do that. So I think we really need to just break it up. Let the people choose. All big expenditures should be chosen by the people. We need to support the corridor. We need to support Loop 88. We need to support all these things. The thing about the corridor that we have to be careful about is that we have to make sure we're not letting people come in here that aren't supposed to be here. And that's what happens. That's what's going to happen if we're not careful with this corridor. We need it. It's going to be great. Loop 88 is going to be really good for East Lubbock. It's going to help us out. So we'll see how that works.
Thank you. As we are switching gears, I have a question here that is very important, I believe. Lubbock has a rich religious heritage. Those roots tell us that the community is judged by the powerful within. It's not, but by the conditions of its poor and powerless. That's how it's judged. What specific plans do you have to improve the conditions of the living poor and the powerless in our city? And we'll start with you, Mr. Garza.
So we're mixing religion, and I believe in Jesus Christ. And we're not. I don't think that question is mixing it, but I don't want people to get the idea that I'm promoting one or not the other. Why are people poor? And then homelessness is you see homelessness, and I don't. I've got a friend who's a Texas Ranger, and he told me over and over again, who said, some people are poor by choice, and some people are poor because of something happened. And then again, our taxes are too high, folks, and we're in debt. How do you drive? So let me draw you a scenario. We're in East Lubbock, and it's the poorest neighborhood in Lubbock. Let's fix Lubbock where it's nice brick homes and all that. Do you think the folks in East Lubbock would be able to live in a nice home for maybe the first year, and then their taxes would skyrocket, and they would have to sell their homes and move out? It's a great idea, but what are unintended results? Because, I mean, we want to help the poor, right? The Bible tells us that, who's going to be first? Is it going to be the wealthy, or the first going to be first? So how do you balance that? Because, again, our taxes are too high, and we have to prioritize the budget and we got so many projects going on. I keep reminding y'all that we're billions of dollars in debt, and you push that forward, it's even more. How do you take care of the poor? And then also say we gotta do the Overton addition, keep it better, because I mean it affects everybody. Everybody would love downtown. It's a noble idea to develop downtown, but then you have people in the east side saying, "What about me? What about my roads that are dirt? I have to travel so much to go to the church, and so much dirt to get to the church." So anyway, it's a good idea, but we need to think about that, how we marry those together.
I'm not ashamed to say that I'm an imperfect follower of Jesus Christ. I'm very open about my faith. And that is a very integral part of our communities, and it has been. There's a long tradition of working with government and churches to get things done, and we have to continue in doing that. But first of all, you have to identify the problem. Anytime there's an issue, you've got to first recognize it, and not bury your head in the sand and just ignore it like it's going to go away. You've got to say, we've got a problem, and we've got to address it. I think me growing up in a really small town, it probably looked more like this room than anybody that grew up in Lubbock, because it was a very diverse small town. And you all had to pull together or you didn't get anything done. And we've got to start pulling in the same direction as opposed to tugging against each other. But we identify those problems. We've got problems, and we could talk about those all day. And then you have to start listening. You identify the problem, and then you listen to other people about what their ideas for resolutions are to problem solve. And once you identify it, then you listen to it, and you start looking at the conditions and how we can go about working together as a community to fix those problems. Some of that's development in the other north and east side of town. Sometimes that's looking at, as I've talked about, development and letting city and agencies start to work to improve the perception of areas so people want to move into those areas, and improve the perception of different neighborhoods, and work together as a city to do that. Some of that is to coordinate with our churches and our NGOs to make sure that we have all the resources available that we can as a city. But it starts with listening, it starts with working together and pulling together as one, as opposed to tugging against each other like we've been wont to do.
Well, everybody, I'm born and raised in India, blessed to be an American. So I've been in the United States for over 20 years now. All those 21 years I've been in Lubbock. 1870s, America became the greatest nation on the planet. And we are the mightiest nation, most prosperous nation, land of promise, land of opportunity. So 150 years, we've been global leaders. Still, we have rampant problems in a lot of cities, including Lubbock, with homelessness and, underprivileged people. We are a welfare state. We have a capitalistic, free market economy. At the same time, because of that, we have so much money that we can take care of our underprivileged. That's why we have all these Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. This needs to be addressed. I shared earlier, I'm already working with several nonprofits. I'm part of South Plains Food Bank Operations Committee to see how we can take care of the food people who are not able to have a meal. It's ironic, the number one country on the planet, and we have thousands of people, even in Lubbock, who don't have food. So continue to work with these nonprofits, the Dream Center, the Salvation Army, to make sure the underprivileged needs are being met. Secondly, form committees which dig deeper, citizens committees, to identify where exactly is the most need, and never stop working with those. And that way, a lot of things can be resolved. We cannot, yes, I'm a for-profit, for business guy, but it is our collective responsibility, social and moral and conscientious responsibility for every citizen to work together to make sure our underprivileged, and Scripture says we are, if we have been blessed with more, we have more responsibility, especially towards the underprivileged. So that will help take care of that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm saved and born again. It took a lot of holy water to get me where I am now. But I'm not ashamed of that. And I also believe that God called me to this race in 2016, 2017, when I first started doing all of this stuff. God called me. I didn't understand, and sometimes I still don't, because I'm like, God, it's like, people nowadays don't want to hear about God. Nobody wants to hear about God, and we've got to go back away from that. God has got to be in the top seat of our politics. The person that's going to lead our city needs to know the Lord and have a good relationship with the Lord, because if not, we're going to be in trouble. And that's a fact. And with this being a Christian town, there is no way we're going to go back away from that. The people won't vote for someone who doesn't love the Lord. So it's not even up to us anyways. The people won't vote for someone who does not love the Lord. One of the things that today I went and talked with Chad Wheeler at Open Door. Spent some time with Chad, and it was really sad, because a lot of people think that everybody that's homeless is on drugs and alcoholic, and that's not true. And these people just need a hand up. Now, I don't want to be taken advantage of as a leader, but I do want us to be in a state of transition. So these people that are going to come into these programs and to the things that we're going to do in our city, they need to understand that we want them to come out of drugs, and we want them to have their own home and their own independence and be able to do things on their own, which makes our economy better, which makes our children better, which makes everything better, and Proverbs 49, I really love that, because it basically talks about having riches and having money and stuff, and not really being able to take that stuff with you. What you really take through life is your experiences and how you treat people and the people that are without.
Okay, yeah. So as far as the homeless situation, I know Chad and Open Door well, and one of the things that the city needs to continue to do is support their efforts in a housing first model. That based on the research, and again, I listen to people who know more than I do in these situations, and so according to them, the housing first model for homelessness is the best model to get people off of the streets. So that's homelessness. Now, as far as in communities, you have to have a city council and a mayor that's concerned with it. And you have to have a city council and a mayor that acknowledges where we have challenges with these issues. And our historic East, North, and Central Lubbock areas have problems with these issues. And so we have to be mindful of that. As far as something that I've already done, and I will continue to do things like it, is last year I began to hold what's called the East Lubbock Empowerment Conference, because it's not going to just take the city and our county institutions. It's going to take people. It's going to take the community side as well. But sometimes the community doesn't have the resources and the mentoring and the coaching they need to know what those things are. And so we started to hold the East Lubbock Empowerment Conference to get our community health right, to get our economic health right, and to get our civic engagement right. Because with those three things, any community is empowered. And so you have to have the community empowered from the community side, but you also have to have them empowered and backed up on the city side. And as far as these issues, especially with youth getting involved in gun violence or people being poor, things of this nature, these are very complex issues. So we have to continue to foster and build on the collaborative relationships between the different entities, county, city, state, and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We've seen many changes in Lubbock's utility services in recent years, including Lubbock Power and Light's transition to the ERCOT power grid. This is another submitted question. What changes, if any, would you like to see at LP&L as we will soon transition to a customer choice market? Mr. Payne, we've circled back to you.
Well, once this transition happens, Lubbock Power and Light, or what used to be LP&L, will be not the distribution line. It'll be primarily responsible for transmission, and then you'll have these other service providers that will be involved in the distribution. And with free markets, sometimes it can be very good because with competition, sometimes rates can lower. It's going to take a change. I've seen these models in South Texas and some other areas, and they will bring you on board and promise you, these low rates, and then they will increase them. So people are going to have to be educated about what happens when the system takes place. It can save people dollars, and it can stop the large spikes that we see that increase, but we're going to have to pay attention. And then the next question that I think everybody has to talk about, and I think whoever's on this next council will have to address, is what do you do with LP&L? Is that something that we can utilize to get out of debt? Is that something that we need to talk to the people about what we're going to do with that? Is that something that's going to bring money into the coffers of the city? Do we need to be in business? But again, a lot of times it just comes down to the city helping educate the neighborhoods and the people about what happens with transition. We've talked about it already with the roads and streets bond package. When you don't get citizens and committees involved and get out there to try to help the people understand what's going to happen, you run into problems. And so we've got to be very mindful of that and help the transition, help the people with the transition, and hopefully it'll help us save money.
Well, we had a agreement with Excel Energy and ERCOT and Lubbock Power and Light took place in 2015. So the transition we had last May or last summer, switching to ERCOT, if we had not switched to ERCOT, we would not have a power source. So that's why we saw 70% of our 83,000 customers, the 70% number is 83,000, got transitioned to ERCOT. And they had to put those devices which would support ERCOT. 30% will be transitioned next year. Now, had we not done that, we would have to build a power plant here in Lubbock, which would have cost us from $400 million to $700 million. So that would have increased our debt more. So that's a good transition. Now, Lubbock Power and Light, we see higher rates in our electricity bills. One of the main reasons has been, one of the primary ways you create electricity is through natural gas. From June of 2019 through summer of last year, natural gas prices went up 133%. That's the reason our bill is high. Now, when we have private players come in 2023, and it increases competition. And when it increases competition, there'll be all these electricity power entities looking for y'all's business. And that will help reduce our electric rates as well. So that's a good move. And, LP&L, they get their debt is through revenue bonds. So they got $35 million last year, but they made $43 million. So that's a different kind of debt. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. ERCOT, I wasn't for it to begin with, just because the amount of money that we had to pay to get that deal done. It at the time just seemed rushed, and I didn't feel like we got enough input from the community and the other people, the stakeholders that were involved. It just moved really fast, and a lot of people don't know that there are other stakeholders in our energy right now that basically take money and rob us and are not truthful with us about what's happening. In terms of ERCOT, it's too early to really know exactly whether or not ERCOT is going to be a good deal for us. We'll see in the near future. But I think with LP&L, I think what everybody is really just upset with them about is like the runoff water and all these fees and stuff that they never tell us what it is, or they put it on the bill and you can't even understand it. If you don't really know what that stuff is, you can't even read the bill. It's crazy. And they do that because they like to they sneak money behind us like that because it's too hard for you to understand. So you say, yeah, forget it. I'm just not even gonna read it. But we got to stop doing that. We got to make sure we're transparent with these people. Make it easy for them. The city manager is going to have to make it easy enough for a fifth grader to be able for me to explain this and make sure that people know exactly what we're doing. They don't care. Most people don't even care if we take a tax increase to make our city safer or better or something like that. They just want to know. They just want the truth. And I think we haven't really been good at that. And I'm not talking down on those guys or anything like that, because we all make mistakes. But I think this group of guys and the council that's coming should keep a tight eye on our transparency and making sure that we're meeting the needs of the citizens and watching out for the money that does not belong to the city. It belongs to the citizen.
Yeah, so what I hope will come out of it is probably the most likely outcome is anytime you bring competition to any market, the general outcome, excuse me, is better pricing and better practices for customers. And so I would be pretty positive that that's going to happen. Now, as far as the fate of LPD, LP&L, excuse me, itself, that right now it's not fully decided if LP&L is just going to be the wires company, if we're going to be what's called a provider of last resort. They're leaning towards just being the wires company. If that's where we go, then a third of your bill is going to be from LP&L still. LP&L is not going to go away. And then the other 2/3 of that bill will be whichever company you choose. And again, I'm hoping that brings better customer service, better transparency with these businesses than it has been felt with LP&L, better pricing. Not as, when you're a monopoly, you have the go ahead to pretty much set the prices anywhere you want. So I'm hoping that will go away. And so, that's pretty much it. Hoping that it will be better for customers.
So as far as LP&L, I'll give you a little history, not to make anybody mad, but you can go back to Mayor Tom Martin, may rest in peace. He's the one who bought out XL wiring within the city, and that was going to be a good deal. That triggered something. It triggered the ERCOT system because we follow state and federal laws. We don't follow Lubbock laws. So Lubbock can have their policies and procedures, but they have to follow state law and they have to follow federal law. There's something called the EPA. They control, we're talking about coal, we're talking about gas, we're talking about nuclear. XL wanted to make a deal with Lubbock at the time of all this mess so they can continue sending cheap energy. They make it at Tolk, Muleshoe and other places. And they wanted to make a deal to continue providing even after they bought them out. Lubbock failed to do that. This is the city council failed to make a deal with the provider of energy. LP&L makes zero energy, nothing, and you've been paying for LP&L. And if you look at your bill, they're charging you other stuff, and that's primarily what they do. Zero generation happens at LP&L, and it hasn't happened for like 20 years. And a lot of people don't know that. They think that it's a good deal. Why do we have LP&L? Again, we follow state law, we follow federal law. Now here is where we follow the city charter of Lubbock. That's why LP&L exists, because it's in the charter and you can't violate the city charter. So one problem is that it exists. You can change the charter, and that would take some heartaches. But anyway, I'm at the South Plains Cooperative, and my neighbor who sold me the house, he's on LP&L, and his is so high. So anyway, that's our problem, and it's more convoluted. It's not a simple issue.
Thank you. The next question, if you are elected mayor, how would you encourage residential and commercial development in our economically disadvantaged communities, like those in North and East Lubbock?
For time reasons, I'm going to add to that. How do you balance that with growth in newer parts of town?
We got to make make the atmosphere, the environment thriving, so that both residential and commercial aspects get the best advantage. For example, hotel occupancy tax, it was passed in 2019. Now, it was passed before the pandemic. That increases the tax for somebody who wants to do business, and somebody who's not as advantaged. Let's say they have a Airbnb. So that was 30, somebody where people can stay 30 days in a row. Now, that discourages businesses to, first of all, do that business, and then secondly, and that would, let's say somebody had that business, that would have led to more revenue for the city, that would have led to more job growth. It discourages businesses. So when you put higher permit fee, business fee, and these unnecessary taxes, that discourages businesses. Secondly, I'll talk about the impact fee. If somebody is into development, which will create more jobs and opportunities and revenue, that needs to be minimized as much as possible. At the same time, when somebody's residential, they're buying a residential home, that especially the first-time home buyers, that's going to discourage them from buying it because they are going to be taking over those costs as well. Now, we got to incentivize, especially the people in the lower income group, so that they can, venture into it, and they can be encouraged wherever finances are concerned. Make it easy for them, reduce those rates, so that way they are able to contribute to the residential and commercial aspect. Thank you.
Yes, sir. When it comes to East and North Lubbock, my mom lives right around the corner, and we talk about it all the time. She always say, "Well, baby, I'm 70, years old, and I'm not as healthy as I used to be," and stuff like that. And she's always asked me if we ever gonna get a restaurant over here where she could have a meal and not have to drive 10 miles to go and eat. And I'm gonna make that happen. And I know from an economical standpoint that we have to go out and seek those and stand in on behalf of East and North Lubbock to talk to those business owners or those builders and those people who are wealthy to come and give us an opportunity, to give us a chance. I really believe that if they'll come over here, they'll realize that this is a great side of town. And like I said earlier, it doesn't flood, and that's really good. We got oil underneath this ground over here. This East Lubbock is quite all right, and so a lot of people are just afraid. There's a stigma on it, like that Black people are bad, I'm gonna get robbed, shot, which is all crap. And we just need to make sure that we, as the leaders, lift those people up and say, hey, East Lubbock and North Lubbock is great. Let's go over there. But we need to lead events and have things in those parts of town to get the people to follow us. We want white people to follow us from West Lubbock. We want Black people to follow us from East Lubbock. We want people to meet up in the middle. We want to go and be with each other. But at the end of the day, I'll tell you right now, in order for us to build anything in East Lubbock, we have to go and advocate and get those people to realize that this is a great place to build.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah, so we actually were the group that advocated the most heavily in the city for impact fees. This is one tool that cities use to combat this issue. And the reason for impact fees is so that growth can pay for growth. And impact fees that get paid in whatever area they get paid in have to be used in that area for the next 10 years. The issue that we have with a lot of the Southwest development prior to impact fees is that developers didn't have to front any of that money for the infrastructure, your roads, your sewer, water, all of that. And so what that ended up doing was being on the backs of the taxpayers, all of it. And so now with the impact fees, that mitigates some of that. Also, those roads, when they come up, before even the notes are paid off, those roads are going to need maintenance. We don't have the money for that. So that's why impact fees, that's one way to help. Another thing that we've advocated for and looks like it's going to make it through is in the Unified Development Code. We've asked for what's called mixed use overlay districts. Back in many years ago in Lubbock, including East Lubbock, you could have a house where you could live in part of that house and you could have a neighborhood friendly business in another part of that house. And that went away with urban renewal, which devastated East Lubbock. And so we are going to bring back mixed use overlay districts to help folks that can be able to start a small business in their home. That helps with those. Another thing is to have a tight partnership and communication with LISD so that we can help them to stop closing neighborhood schools. This is something that devastates neighborhoods and causes population drain to other parts of the area, and we've seen that over the last 10 years. as many schools have been closed over the last 10 years. And so now, as far as paying for things, the city of Lubbock has recently hired a grant writer. I think we need several of those because the city has 3 ways to pay for things: taxes, bonds, and grants can get a lot done.
Thank you, Mr. Garza.
Yeah, so again, I have to focus again on taxes because I don't think people understand, and I know you do, but it's your neighbors, it's everyone else. So we want to grow Lubbock, right? That's a good thing. And then we want to bring the poverty-stricken areas, and that's a good thing. At the end of the day, man, we're killing ourselves. How many of you like to pay taxes? I mean, when you go to Walmart, do you ever tell them, hey, put an extra 10% on there in taxes so that I can do my part? You know, most of us, we're paying for our goods and services, and that's enough. It's when it's a mismanagement that happens, you know, at all levels, because there's a lot of wonderful, good ideas, but do we chase all of those good ideas in sense that we're going to make it better? One of those ideas is taxing rental cars, right? And that's a good idea. We'll take money from people who are renting cars and we'll take this percentage and do good things for Lubbock. Again, how many of you like to pay taxes? That's not something good. That's something bad. It's something negative. I don't think that generates more taxes. I think if we were to lower our taxes, I remember living in Plainview. I graduated from a small town, Kittiquake, and we used to come to Lubbock because the taxes were 6 point something. Right now we're like 8.25. That 2 point something is a killer. When you're spending $100 or $200 in groceries. And then if you need to spend the night at a hotel, oh, here's your little extra because we're doing good things for Lubbock. And you hear it on this table. That's a good thing. That's a good thing that we're stealing your extra money because we're going to fund new development and old development. And again, it's an idea. It's a philosophy. I don't think it works. I think it punishes people because most of us don't like to pay taxes. We're going to pay taxes because we need essential services. And those monies, if you manage them correctly, they should be able to do the things we need done.
Thank you. The old saying is retail follows housing. So you've got to start with housing. And it's not just new development. It's got to be infill and using the lots that are here and getting some new housing moving forward. And I think that was the vision that going back to 2018, when you look at the 2040 plan, the problem is then you get some things that have happened over the last few years that have kind of slowed down some of those neighborhood development plans. But you've got to get housing, and that can come through, I represent builders that want to build over here. This is the most beautiful part of town. This is where it started. Is you have the Canyon Lakes areas. It's a beautiful area. And you have builders that want to build over here, but sometimes we get the government in the way of moving forward. And so we've got to get the government out of the way and then move forward with assisting. You can waive fees. You can waive permit fees to get people encouraged to want to build new houses and develop over here. You can waive impact fees on those people that are creating new infrastructure because that's not going to apply necessarily towards infill and just residential buildings. But we've got to get the retail moving forward. You can work with the neighborhoods and neighborhood associations to continue to move forward, trying to get new housing, getting people encouraged to want to move over here, taking the perception away of negativity and moving forward with the perception of positivity. Again, I think that's one of the big issues. Targeted maintenance is also another way that you can help with development. You can get people that want to target specific areas and help with maintenance. And I'll tell you another big issue that we don't talk about. I'm trying to get to your second question, Sarah. But we have a lot of landlords that move over here. And you know what? They don't follow the rules. They don't do what's supposed to be done. And they just let things go and they don't take care of it. And we've got to get our city and code enforcement on those people that are just renting out and make sure that they're following the rules and make sure we have good maintenance and good developed places, infill, develop, get the housing market moving, and retail will then follow.
Thank you.
All right, again, in the interest of time, I'm going to expedite us to our last question. Lubbock is an increasingly diverse city. What would it mean to you to represent both citizens who agree with you and those who see things differently? I believe that starts us with Mr. Sanders.
I think that's been the biggest thing I've learned my entire time doing politics is that people aren't going to agree with everything that you say. And I really, truly believe that the people who don't agree with what you say are the people who help you learn because we don't know everything. And you've got to take a step back and be able to listen. just because I think it's worth saying, I truly believe that I have what it takes to help us come together. We got to come to the table, and we can't be disrespectful, and there can't be side agendas. That's the thing. No, we don't need anybody who has a side agenda. You need to come in and take care of the people's business only, and not be attached to any entities and stuff like that, because the people need you to be focused on them only. We don't have time for side games. And so I'm going to do that. Whatever issues you have, East Lubbock, I'm going to face those issues. You already know. I mean, this is where I'm from. My mother still lives here. She's got a beautiful home here. And so I want to make sure that it's taken care of. And so the tax, and as far as taxes go, if you want to see your side of the town look really nice, it's gonna cost you a little bit of money. That's just all it is to it. Nobody's gonna lower your taxes. Nobody at this table. They can't, because we got too much debt. So I just wanna be honest with y'all about that. That's not happening. But what we can do is we can go and cut fat from that budget and make sure that we putting that money somewhere else. Because there's some things that we do that don't even benefit us, that we spend money on as a city. Yet and still, we still got dirt roads and all these things in East Lubbock. And they're talking about building a civic center and a hotel and all this. We don't need to do all of that. Let's take care of what we got first. Let's focus on the basics. We owe East and North Lubbock that in the first place. We just owe it.
Yeah, so what it would mean to me to represent the entire city would just be a continuation of what I've been doing for the past 2.5 years. I've been uniting and mobilizing folks across the city in every community you can imagine, across every political spectrum you can imagine, and I will continue to do that. Now, when I think about what it means to me personally, this would be huge. I would be the first Hispanic mayor, obviously. And the reason why I'm even able to sit in this position and run for this position, one of the major reasons is Miss Rose Wilson. And so I think about her because she was the plaintiff on the case that got us single member districts. Before that, it was all at large, and we never elected anybody that wasn't white. When that case got won, the very next cycle, we elected our first Hispanic council person and first Black council person. And so when I think about that, and I think about the support I have from Ms. Rose and the love I have for her, I just feel, I would feel very proud and honored.
So diversity means a lot of things for a lot of people, ideas and our skin color. And that would be I think for Lubbock to elect a minority, and look at this table. There's a bunch of minorities. Why did a bunch of minorities decide to represent Lubbock this time? And honestly, folks, we got to blame all of us because one, minorities don't reach out and try to run for offices because they're afraid. We're afraid. Why? Because we might lose, because if you look at the population, it's white in Lubbock. That's not a bad thing. All right. But the percentages, when you look at, how many Hispanics, how many, and then the socioeconomic, you have some rich Black folks here. You have some rich white folks, and you have some rich Hispanics, and then a bunch of people, throughout the system. So this office is about representing everyone. And we keep saying things like, the platitudes, we'll all come together, we'll do this. We all have an agenda, folks. Everyone has an agenda, Folks in East Lubbock want to fix East Lubbock. Folks downtown want to fix downtown. And the budget, and I keep talking about taxes, and Sanders just said we can't lower your taxes. We can lower your taxes if we fight, and we gotta attack the state level and we gotta attack the federal level. We're $30 trillion at the federal level in debt. That's also our debt. I said we were $1 billion and then $2 billion. If you go a little bit further, that's our debt. So we're spending all these wonderful monies that I think Thomas Jefferson said that your lives will be better basically when you stop trusting the government, because the government is telling you, give us your money and don't worry about anything. We'll take care of you. How has that worked out for us, folks? That's pretty tough. So anyway, we need to, the taxes we take from you, we're stealing them from you. We voluntarily need them to pay for core services. And then how you allocate those so that they'll do more bang for your buck. You don't need to pay a businessman to come here to make more business. They know I'm a businessman.
Thank you. Mr. Payne.
Thank you. So professionally, I live in a world of disagreement. I know everybody wants to make the lawyer joke at this point, but as a prosecutor, I fight with the defense side. As a defense side, I fight with the prosecutor. And I'm a problem solver because I do live in that world, and I have multiple different practice areas: real estate, criminal, family law, divorce. And you learn how to be a problem solver, and you learn to deal with people of all races, all groups, all ethnicities. You just learn to deal with people in my profession, and I feel like I'm good at that. From a personal standpoint of view, I grew up, and I come back to my roots. I've been in Lubbock for 30 years. This is where my home is. But I grew up in that small town where my dad was a little small town pharmacist, and you kind of the de facto doctor if the doctor moved out of town. And my dad took care of everybody. That's who my dad was. And he took care of the poor at 2 o'clock in the morning. If they needed a prescription filled, he took care of everybody in town. That's just, our house was a revolving door of people. And that was because he loved people. And I think he passed that on. I think public service for all of us is probably generational. You just don't step up and say, I'm going to do this. I think you're called to do it, and it becomes something you feel like you need to do. And I feel like I'm called to do this. And I feel like if you stay with the motto of just loving on people and trying to pull in the same direction, you're going to have disagreement. I guarantee we all don't agree on every issue. But if we do this for the betterment of our community and we focus on taking care of our community, pulling in the same direction, we can make this better, and we can make Lubbock a better place. And I say it's cheesy, but we can make it even better than it is. And that's what I want to do. And I think it's exciting to be able to work together and pull together with people that you don't always agree with. That's the cool part of life.
Well, the greatest blessing God can shower upon you is to have you been born in the United States of America. I wish I was born here. I would have conquered the world by now. It's not because I'm great. America is great. And America is great due to its capitalistic free economy structure, freedom, liberty, and less government. Unfortunately, at the federal level and at our city level, that has not been practiced. So I want to be Lubbock's mayor who believes in less government, involves all the citizens, where citizens have their voice. So I want to be the people's mayor. And what I said about America earlier, on top of that, one thing is incredible about America is y'all, the born here Americans. Believe me, being an immigrant to the United States, you are the most tolerant and accepting people. If somebody loves America, they are hardworking, they are law-abiding, and they have big vision, you all make them one of you soon enough. It is nowhere else on the planet. And my story is possible not in Russia, or in Sweden, or in Poland, or in Germany, or in China. My story is possible only in one magical place, the United States of America. So I love you all. God bless you all. Thank you so much. I'd really appreciate your prayers and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Oh, this way.
Nope, we're good. We're good. That concludes our forum. Early voting starts April 25th and continues through May 3rd before Election Day on May 7th. For more information on voting, visit votelubbock.org. And for more local election news coverage, visit ttupublicmedia.org. Candidates, we want to thank you for participating in tonight's West Texas Town Hall.
Also, we want to thank you for coming out to this forum and being a part of this discussion that we've been having. Thank you.